Stephen Colbert spent years making millions of people laugh. Through sharp political commentary, unforgettable interviews, and deeply personal late-night monologues, he built something rare in television, a show that felt genuinely human. But now, fans are facing something they never expected: the end. Rumors, emotional moments on air, and growing discussions about his future have left viewers heartbroken and wondering what comes next for one of television's most beloved hosts. Behind the laughter was a man who carried personal struggles, deep faith, and a unique connection with his audience. And his latest chapter is leaving fans emotional in ways few could have imagined. Stephen Colbert was away on vacation when the decision was made. No warning, no phone call, nothing. While he was finally getting a break from the pressure of live television, executives at CBS were already deciding the future of The Late Show. What makes the story even harder to hear is that his manager had known for weeks but chose not to tell him until everything was official. Colbert didn't learn the truth until the evening of July 16, 2025. Less than a day later, he walked into the Ed Sullivan Theater and faced his audience. CBS had planned to announce the news on their own terms, but Colbert beat them to it. He wanted the people who had supported him for years to hear it directly from him first. What followed wasn't angry or dramatic. That's what made it so emotional. He stood there calmly and thanked the nearly 200 staff members who helped make the show happen every night. The writers, producers, camera crews, and stage workers who rarely got the credit they deserved. Then he thanked CBS for giving him a television home for the last decade. But one line hit the audience especially hard. Colbert explained that he wasn't simply leaving the chair and handing the show to someone else. The entire Late Show was ending. Not a handover, not a new beginning, just over. That changed everything. This wasn't just another late night host stepping away. This was the end of a television institution that had existed since 1993. First came David Letterman, whose legendary run shaped modern late-night television for more than 2 decades. Then came Colbert, who carried the show through another 11 unforgettable years. And now, without warning, it was all coming to a close. The audience immediately began booing after hearing the news. Colbert looked out at them quietly, nodded, and admitted he felt the same way. It was a small moment, but it revealed everything people loved about him. Even in disappointment, he stayed honest, calm, and deeply human. And in that theater, for just a few seconds, it felt like everyone realized they weren't only losing a TV host. They were saying goodbye to an era. The final week of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was announced for May 15, 2026. And from the beginning, it was clear this would not be a normal goodbye. Every episode felt carefully chosen, almost like Colbert was building one last message before the lights finally went out inside the Ed Sullivan Theater. The week opened on Monday, May 18th, with an episode titled The Worst of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And the show made a point of clarifying it was not a clip show. That description felt intentional, almost like Colbert was refusing to go out with a simple nostalgia parade. Instead of replaying old moments for easy laughs, it felt like he wanted to say something deeper about failure, awkwardness, mistakes, and the strange humanity that had always made his version of late-night television different from everyone else. Then came Tuesday night, and suddenly the emotional weight of the farewell became impossible to ignore. Jon Stewart appeared alongside Steven Spielberg, while David Byrne joined Colbert for a live performance. Bruce Springsteen was also part of the week's guest lineup, turning the final episodes into something much bigger than television. It felt like friends and legends gathering for one final salute. Stewart's appearance especially carried weight. Long before Colbert became one of the biggest names in television, Stewart was the one who gave him a real platform on The Daily Show. In many ways, he helped shape the version of Colbert that audiences would eventually come to love. After CBS announced a cancellation, Stewart publicly criticized both CBS and Paramount, suggesting the real reason behind the decision had less to do with money and more to do with fear inside major corporations. Fear of upsetting the wrong people or saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. By Wednesday, May 20th, the focus shifted completely onto Colbert himself. For years, he had put celebrities through the famous Colbert questionnaire, asking them strange, funny, and oddly personal questions. But this time, Colbert would finally answer the questionnaire himself, surrounded by surprise guests. Bruce Springsteen performed that night too, adding even more emotion to a week that already felt heavy with reflection. And then came Thursday, May 21st, the final episode. CBS kept most of the details secret ahead of time, but the guest list alone sounded unreal. Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, John Oliver, David Letterman, Tom Hanks, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Pedro Pascal, and the Strokes were all confirmed to appear. It read less like a television booking sheet and more like a Hall of Fame ceremony for a show that many believe should never have ended in the first place. But even while saying goodbye, Colbert already had another dream quietly waiting. Months earlier in March, he revealed through Warner Brothers that he and his son Peter were writing a new Lord of the Rings film together. What surprised many fans was learning that the project had actually been pitched directly to director Peter Jackson nearly 2 years before the cancellation announcement. Jackson reportedly loved the idea. For Colbert, a lifelong Tolkien superfan, this wasn't just another Hollywood project. It was deeply personal. He once recited Aragorn's entire biography from memory on live television, leaving Viggo Mortensen so stunned that he later sent Colbert a platter of Lord of the Rings characters carved from chocolate. With dry humor, Colbert admitted before the cancellation that running a nightly talk show made pursuing that dream nearly impossible. Then he added one line that felt heartbreaking once the show's end became public. His summer schedule had unexpectedly opened up. His achievements speak for themselves. 11 Emmy Awards, 2 Grammys, 3 Peabody Awards, more than 1,800 episodes across 11 years, the longest consecutive ratings-winning streak in late show history. The show even won its first Emmy for Outstanding Variety Talk Series in 2025, during the very last season of its existence. And behind all those achievements was a man shaped by pain long before television fame ever arrived. Stephen Tyrone Colbert was born in Washington, D.C., the youngest of 11 children in a loud, intelligent, deeply Catholic family. They lived briefly in Bethesda, Maryland, before settling in James Island, a suburb near Charleston, South Carolina. That southern upbringing stayed with him forever, even though he quickly noticed the world often mocked people who sounded like they came from the South. As a child, he began teaching himself to speak like national news anchors, carefully copying broadcasters until he could flatten out his accent whenever he wanted. Even then, there was already something very performer about him. But the defining moment of his childhood came on September 11th, 1974. Stephen was only 10 years old when his father and 2 of his brothers, Paul and Peter, died in the crash of Eastern Airlines Flight 212 while trying to land in Charlotte, North Carolina. The loss shattered the family. One day, the house was full. The next, entire pieces of it were gone forever. After the crash, his mother moved the family into downtown Charleston and ran a bed and breakfast to support them. Emotionally, Colbert withdrew from the world. He later admitted that after losing his father and brothers, nothing seemed important anymore. He felt detached, almost numb. During those lonely years, he escaped into books, especially science fiction and fantasy. More than anything, he became obsessed with the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings gave him something he desperately needed, a story about pain, endurance, friendship, sacrifice, and hope surviving even in darkness. He also became heavily involved in fantasy role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. For Colbert, those games became something much more than entertainment. They allowed him to imagine different worlds and different identities at a time when real life felt unbearably heavy. He later described role-playing games as one of his earliest experiences with acting and improvisation. After school, Colbert attended Hampton, Sidney College in Virginia, where he studied philosophy and became more serious about performing. He was drawn to Stoicism and the writings of Marcus Aurelius, genuinely trying to understand suffering and purpose after spending so much of his life surrounded by grief. He later transferred to Northwestern University to study theater performance, still imagining himself as a dramatic actor rather than comedian. That love of being on stage eventually led him into Chicago's improv scene, where everything changed. Studying under legendary improv teacher Del Close, Colbert developed a sharp timing and quick thinking that would later define his television career. He began performing with Second City's touring company, where he met Amy Sedaris and Paul Dinello, two people who would become lifelong creative partners. At first, they didn't even like each other. But over time, the three became inseparable, bonded by a shared sense of humor that was weird, smart, awkward, and completely different from traditional television comedy. His early career was marked by rejection and near misses. He auditioned unsuccessfully for Saturday Night Live, twice. Several shows he joined were canceled almost immediately, but every setback sharpened him rather than breaking him. A brief connection through a comedy segment for Good Morning America eventually led his agent to The Daily Show producer Madeline Smith-Berg, who gave him a trial run in 1997. That single opportunity quietly changed the course of everything. When Jon Stewart took over The Daily Show in 1999, the show transformed from a goofy comedy program into one of the sharpest political satire shows on television. Colbert's role expanded alongside it. He developed a fully realized character, a television pundit who spoke with total certainty even when he clearly had no idea what he was talking about. The performance was brilliant because Colbert never played the character as openly evil. Instead, he portrayed someone who genuinely believed he was intelligent while constantly embarrassing himself with terrible logic and complete overconfidence. Other correspondents on the show openly admitted they spent years simply doing Stephen Colbert impressions. By 2005, Comedy Central handed him his own show. The Colbert Report premiered on October 17, 2005, and quickly became one of the most unique and influential programs in television history. By the time it ended in 2014, after 1,447 episodes, it had completely transformed his career and his place in American culture. On April 10, 2014, CBS announced that Colbert would succeed David Letterman as a new host of The Late Show. He debuted on September 8, 2015, with George Clooney as his first guest, and over the following decade, built the highest-rated late-night program on television. His mix of political commentary, emotional honesty, and sharp comedy connected deeply with audiences during some of the most uncertain years in recent memory. In the end, this wasn't just Stephen Colbert saying goodbye to The Late Show. It was the end of an era that millions of viewers grew up with and connected to night after night. Through heartbreak, humor, and honesty, Colbert became far more than a late-night host. He became a voice people genuinely trusted. And that is exactly why this goodbye feels so hard to let go.